Hello everyone, and welcome to another exciting venture in Avorion, the space sandbox simulator game. Today I'm going to show you how to build mining stations, space stations, as well as answering some common questions such as, why are my mines and space stations not producing anything? I'll also cover a bit on location, like where do you want to place your mines, where you might not want to place your mines, as well as advantages, pros and cons of putting your space station or mine in an allied faction versus building your own sector like I did over here. I'll also cover a little bit about the current release of the game and why mines and space stations are probably not the best use of your time and money, at least with the current patch of the game. And with that, let's get started. And now we're going to build a mine. In order to build a mine, you need to have an asteroid that's capable of doing it. These are relatively rare. The way you identify them is notice how most asteroids have one identifiable shape. For example, this is cubish, this is more of a rectangular, this is somewhat spherical, or maybe just a regular cube, but they all have one distinct shape. The way you can tell an asteroid that you can turn into a mine apart is it has multiple shapes. It almost looks like several asteroids were clumped together. There's usually a general center of mass, and then a protrusion at the top, a protrusion at the bottom, a protrusion from the sides, and then one from the front and the back. This is the ones you can actually claim. You have to get very close to them, like 0.25 kilometers, and when you get close enough, you can press F, and then claim them. At this point, you press F again, and you can sell the asteroid if you so choose. This will sell it to the local faction for about 250,000 credits, or you can found a mine. In this particular case, if I click on it, you can see the different types of mines, how much they cost to set up for the first time. So this is a one-time cost. And then you can see what they produce. So a zinc mine produces zinc, an ice mine produces water, and then the various noble metal mines produce silver, platinum, and gold. And there's a few others as well. Which one you pick depends upon the supply and demand of your area. You don't want to just pick any just because you want to. You want to pick something that makes sense for the area you are in. And I'll cover more on that in a little bit. In this particular case, I'm just going to go ahead and produce gold and platinum, which is the most expensive one. So this is a one-time cost. This action is irreversible, so once you make this choice, you can't undo it. There you go. I now have a mine. Now in this particular case, if I click on it and say I want to buy and sell goods, notice how there is nothing there. It's 0, 0. And this is a common complaint I see online where people ask, why is my mine not producing anything? Well, the reason's simple. You need space to put the gold and platinum into. The way you do that is click on your mine, go ahead and select it, and click build. You need to build cargo space. And pay no attention to my Fred over there. He's drunk from too much partying last night, so he's just going around and around and around. So if we zoom in here, but I'm going to shrink this down because we don't need cargo space this much. If you put about, that's about 1,600 cargo, there we go, 1512. So I go ahead and put that there. You also need crew quarters because you're going to need some crew to make this efficient. So let's go ahead and add a crew quarter. Normally these mines take around 70 crew, give or take. Some take more, some take less. Additionally, I would highly recommend, if you have deflector shields, go ahead and put those on. In the case, once you're in the narrow night or better material range, just put them on. They're going to save you so much trouble. There's pirates and other factions will attack all the time. My friend was just totally excited about this. Once we've done this, let's go ahead and exit out and take a look at the mine again. Buy, sell goods. Already you can see that it's 4 units per item, and there's a 1,500 total stock. Now remember, before we had the cargo bay at about 1,500. The reason we could hold 3,000 total is the volume of one of these individual items is half. So 1,500 of these is actually 750 volume. So if you add those two together, that's 1,500. There's one more thing we need to add on to this. Go ahead and enter it and build. You can't actually get anything off of it right now because it doesn't have any docking stations. So what you want to do is select one of these, and where this red light is, let me shrink this down so we actually see it. Like that. Where this red light is, you want to put your docking station right on top of it. Now what I normally do is I create a long protrusion like you normally see in the game on top of it, and I put the docking station at the very end of it, so right there. And let's add one more as well. And actually normally I would make these out of armor, and then you want to add integrity field generators on them. The reason you want to do this is because the AI is not particularly intelligent, and it routinely, after docking, will crash into this. And you just don't want your station destroyed, or at least your docking station destroyed, because then you got to repair it, and people aren't going to be giving you money and so forth. So do try to keep them active if you can. I'm having a lot of trouble sizing that. There we go. Good enough for government work. Like that. And last but not least, you have to add the actual dock. So we'll just click on that. We'll zoom in a bit. You want to make this relatively small. Otherwise, it's actually hard to hit, because where it determines the docking point. Because remember, you have to be about 0 kilometers to actually dock. So if this is not relatively small, it can actually be hard to get close enough to dock. Now, once we've done this, the mine is now ready to go. At this point, we would add crew, and we can go ahead and buy materials off of it. And since we paid for this station, we don't pay anything for picking up the materials, though we are indirectly paying for it via the crew that we are paying, and also the initial upfront cost for building the mine. Now let's go ahead and build a station. In this particular case, what you do is go to a shipyard, because you need to build a special kind of ship. If we go here and select build ship, what you want is you need a station founder. So you got to click this. The other thing I normally click is insurance, and you don't really need crew and captain, but I'm doing it now for demo purposes, because it makes it easier for me to move the ship around. When you're ready, click build, and we'll have to give it about 20 seconds to come out. Now it's time to found the station. What you do is, when you're in your ship, go ahead and click found station at the top. When we do this, it's going to give you a menu of the different things you can produce. And notice how there are 4 tiers of stations that you can build. The lowest one is this one, the basic factories. These things are distinguished because most of the time they produce something, but they don't have any prerequisite materials. But the higher level ones, they have prerequisites. And typically the way it works is that the high-tech factories, which cost the most, and also produce items that generate the most revenue, they have a lot of dependencies on items that come from the tier before. And the tier before has lots of dependencies on items that come on the tier before that. And so on down the list. Now, it's not a hard and fast rule that that's always true. Sometimes these things might depend upon things lower down in the tiers, or perhaps one of the mining facilities. But the point is, it goes like a pyramid, where at the top of the tier, the top of the pyramid, it relies upon everything below, more or less. So therefore, when you get one of these, they're actually really expensive, not just for the upfront costs, but also for the materials you're going to need to either load it to build the things you need, or if you wanted to build your own stations to provide all the dependencies, that would require an enormous amount of factories and mines, which would be very, very expensive to create and then keep running via the crew payments. So for this particular case, we'll just hover over one of these just to show you. The body armor, again, this is a very profitable thing to sell. Lots of places want it. Most places I've traveled always want body armor, and they pay pretty well for it. It has a lot of requirements, as you can see, such as anti-grav units and teleporters, and those things are not cheap. But it does produce one thing, and most of these things pretty much produce one. In this case, we're going to go to a basic factory, and we're going to use one of these. So I'm going to go ahead and transform it. Click OK. And there we go. Our station is right beside us. Just like with the mine, you're going to have to build some cargo space for it. So for example, if we get closer here and buy sell goods, you notice that the stock is 0, 0, just like the mine. And it's the exact same issue. We have to get a little closer again. Okay, now that we're in it, we can go ahead and press B, and we can add items onto it. As usual, I like to build with armor for the initial protrusion pieces. So here what I'll do is with these solar panels, just to make them look halfway decent, I'll add an armor block here, extend it out, and then go ahead and add a crew quarters. And as well as a cargo bay. And again, this cargo bay is extremely important. After this, just like with the mine, you have to add a point to dock. And just like the mine, you add it on where you see the red lights. There's going to be, I think there's always 6, at least I've always seen 6, one for each side. So top, bottom, left, right, back, and front. So again, go back to armor. You want the armor again because when ships crash into it, you want to give it a better chance of survival. So we'll zoom in a little bit here. I don't have deflector shields on this, but in general, I would highly recommend having deflector shields, and of course put integrity field generators along this pole, just to give it a little bit more survivability. We'll go ahead and select the dock, and shrink that down a little bit. And there we go. Alright, so we go back out here and select it and go to buy sell goods. You can see it's already starting to produce. We have 24 to 25,000, and this type of facility is very basic. It has no prerequisites. It just builds. You don't have to sell it anything. In this case, I'll show you in just a moment now one of my other stations where it does require prerequisites and how that works. One thing I am missing though is crew. You should stock this up on crew, because right now, as you can see, I need a lot. And welcome to my star system. Here I have 2 factories. One is a solar cell factory. The other is a solar panel factory. And I have 2 mines. This here is a silver mine that also produces platinum. And I have a zinc mine as well, which is up way out that way. I also have a warship that's patrolling about somewhere out in space that's defending the star system from attack. It is a Pulsar class warship. Over here is my solar panel factory, which if we look at it real quick, we'll notice that it's not producing anything. The reason it's not producing anything more is because its prerequisites are not met. Now, when you're founding a station, you can see what the prerequisites are when you hover over the item you're about to build. In this case, you can also see what they are, because when you go to the the buy menu, you can see at the sell to station, the things you sell to it are the prerequisites it needs to build the item that you will buy from it. Now in this case, we don't have any solar cells. So let's go head up to it and give it solar cells so you can see what happens when it has all the prerequisites. One thing I'll also point out is, if you want to know if you have your docking station on the right point of your station or your mine, look for these little guide lights, just as if you're about to land a plane on planet Earth. If you see these lights like that, then you have it set up right. Notice how you only see it on this one direction. You only see it on this one direction because this is the only point where I have the docking station set up. So we'll just get a little closer here. And buy, sell goods, right? Again, it's still at 120, it hasn't changed. Now once we add these, we'll give them all 600. Keep looking here, it's 120. It takes a little bit. One thing I'll point out is usually facilities that are more advanced will take longer to produce an item, whereas simpler facilities like the energy cell factory I showed you a little bit earlier, that thing produces relatively quickly. However, each item it builds is not that expensive overall, whereas this item is a lot more expensive. You can sell it probably at 10,000 credits when it's like 20 or 30% above market value. And here already you can see we produced 2 in the time I spent talking them. If you want to take them, you can take them. Notice how it doesn't cost us anything, though indirectly we are paying for it because we're paying for the crew and as well as the one-time cost to set it up. And we also are possibly paying for these items. So like these items I built myself, but these I had to buy from somewhere else. And that really is it for stations. They are a lot of fun. I would encourage you to experiment with them, though don't expect to make a lot of money off of them, which will get me into the next section, which is based upon location and how to make some profit off of them, and as well as limitations on stations now because of the current economics of the game. Now a word on location. When you place your station or your mine, you have two choices. One is you could do what I did, which is create it in its own sector and build it out like your own little base. Or you can build inside of another sector. There are pros and cons for both of these models. Now, what I chose to do is build my own sector because I thought it was pretty neat. Though it is neat, it's also very expensive because then you need to build massive warships to defend it. Within the first night of me building up my stations, my 2 mines and 2 stations, I was attacked by a faction 3 times, of which one of the attacks happened 30 seconds after I wiped the prior attack, and then attacked by pirates somewhere around 5 times that night. And a few of the attacks were actually pretty dangerous. I was almost wiped out a few times. Now, having said that, it is a lot of fun. It is very interesting to do, but it's going to be very expensive. Whereas if you build it inside another station where you are friends with them, then they have a war fleet which can help protect you. So you don't have to pay for this expensive behemoth. Whatever warship you build has to be strong enough, if you choose to go the one sector route, to defend against any possible enemy attacks. Concerning location though, after you pick whether it's in your area or in someone else's area, you need to then place it in an area where the demand for the product you're producing is relatively high and more than just one location needs the item you're producing. Ideally, it should be within 1 or 2 jump ranges of your freighter from wherever you're producing it. If that's not the case, you're going to find yourself doing a lot of hauling in the game, and you may or may not enjoy that. I personally don't, so I try to make sure I can get to everything within 1 jump, if at all possible. Additionally, a lot of the things you're going to build in the stations require a lot of prerequisite materials. You could potentially build enough stations and enough mines to provide for all of those prerequisites, but that would be extremely expensive. The cheapest facilities cost around 3 million credits. The most expensive, upwards of 200 million credits. That's a lot. Additionally, paying for the crew is not cheap every day, or actually every 3 hours of gameplay. So whether or not you want to pay for that versus simply buying the materials at a low price and then putting them into your station is a choice you have to make. In my case, I would much rather build a station or a mine in an area that the supply of materials I need to feed my main product to produce it is relatively low, and there's multiple points where I can buy it for a low price. That is what I would recommend. Again, you can do what you want with your own game, but it all depends on what type of gameplay you want to have. Now for the effectiveness and usability of a mine and a space station. They cost a lot, like you've seen in the earlier part of the video. A space station can cost easily 3 million to up to 200 million credits, and a mine can cost up to 9 million from just a few million. One of the challenges is that when you leave a current sector that your mine is in, within about 5 minutes of you leaving, the sector is unloaded, which means your mine and space station are not producing anything. Contrary-wise, that mine and space station still has crew that you're paying for. So unless if you want to sit in your sector all the time, you're not going to make much money. And it's going to be very frustrating because it's just going to be a money hole, which is pretty much what happened to me. Additionally, I found with the current release of the game, as you can see here already, I keep getting attacked probably every 15 minutes or so by increasingly larger fleets and sometimes even more advanced fleets, meaning you have to equip your station with better and better defenses and better warships, as you can see here. I have quite a few of them, some prettier than others or more colorful than others. Additionally, when you place a station, I was recommending that you want to place it in a location where there's multiple places that will take the supply of what you're producing and purchase it. for a good profit, and as well as they will provide material that you can use to build your stuff for a decent price. The problem is all sectors are unloaded. So let us say, for example, that I have stuff here that I want to sell to here, and I want to buy it from here, from some product to produce whatever it is I'm producing. The moment I leave this sector and sell here, or 5 minutes after, this sector starts producing. I then load this guy up. I then go back to here to buy stuff, and I go back to my starting location. But the problem is, the moment I leave this sector, it stops working. So that means the things I sold are no longer going to be consumed, so that there's now more demand for it after it's consumed and sold. I have to sit in this sector for it to be fully consumed, then go over here, drain it, and wait for it, and then sit here and wait until it's regenerated before I can pick it up yet again and move it back to my sector, where I then have to sit there for that to process. And this is very frustrating, and it makes those facilities rather useless at this time. I have a lot of hope, though, in the future that they will be a lot more economical to build. The fact that they have so many of them and the options for the trade routes makes it likely that the developers will improve the game so that eventually they will be profitable. But until sectors are no longer unloaded, and until trading is a little bit more automatic between sectors, whether you are in them or not, I would not advise making one of these stations. Instead, I would do trading like what I did. At the very top here, you can see I have about 500 million credits, and that's after building all these ships, and they're not cheap. This one required a general, this big one, just to keep it running. The 500 million credits was made by just finding a body armor factory that sold body armor for about 60% below market value. Bought about 8,000 of them and sold them at military outposts in the neighboring facilities. Within 30 minutes, I made about 500 million credits. At this current release of the game, the best way to make money, if that's your goal, is get a ship that can explore deep into space very quickly with a lot of cargo space. Like this ship is all cargo. It has like 15,000 cargo or something like that, as well as fighters. And just buy low, sell high. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this. Having said that, stations and mining stations are very fun to build and to play around with. I would encourage you to do so. But ultimately, for the game as it is currently released, you want to build a ship that can haul cargo from some station that has low value items and then sell it at a place that has high value. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. Take care.